So this is a memory of my first time ever riding in the absolute pouring rain. The weather report was thunderstorms in the morning, and I was like, yeah, fine, no problems. And it was meant to be glorious sunshine later on in the day. So I thought by the time I left Edinburgh and got up to Dundee, I'll be riding into Dundee, the sun will be shining off the chrome, and I'll be almost too hot by the time I get there. No, that wasn't quite the case. So the full ride up there, filled up the tank to full, so it's a good 60 miles up to there. And by the time I got there, I'd only done half a tank, so happy with that. So the fuel economy was good. The weather just poured on me the whole way up, and I'd recently just bought a Harley Davidson kind of flannel jacket with the padding in the elbows and stuff like that. And thinking, oh yeah, I only ever ride on sunny days, thinking I need something to keep me nice and cool. Well, that's not waterproof. So when I got there, also my riding trousers are just kind of like jean style motorcycle trousers, and they're not waterproof either. And the water just poured down my body, into my legs, into my boots. And while I'm changing my the gear here and using the brake, all I feel is the water sloshing about in my actual boots. So I was like, this it's like wearing welly boots. None of the water was getting out. It was a very soggy day. So whenever I get to the house that I'm going to, it was a case of putting all my clothes in the tumble dryer for about 2 hours, which I think might have shrunk my clothes as well, annoyingly, and just trying to dry everything out, because the ride home was perfect. So here, getting into Dundee was great. It was strangely on the road. It was so wet. There's this kind of bubbles. You can almost see it at the side there. It's like had they accidentally poured down washing up liquid, so that made me very almost intimidated to go anywhere. On the right we've got the Discovery and the VNA, so it's like it could have been a beautiful sight going through Dundee. The old train station on the left, the traffic was nice and calm and free flowing. This is all this area of Dundee's all been redeveloped. So this is all looking brand new, and if you haven't been to Dundee for a long time, trying to figure a way around all these traffic lights and these road markings is a little bit of a challenge. You need to really know where you're going here, and it's a lot of start and stop. So that was the traffic light there. Then we come up here to another traffic light, and it's just start stop start stop start stop. So you want to have a fairly good confidence in your bike at this bit. But yeah, my handlebar on the left, my clutch handlebar, that one is a little bit loose, so over time it slowly peels back. It's just a case of just squeezing it back in. It needs a stronger glue to keep the handlebar where it is. But, useful for actually be able to change it if you need to. Yeah, look at the way. And then it's quickly to the next bit, and then stop again. And you can already see the next set of traffic lights. In fact, they're so close that I almost don't notice them. And get in front of all the cars here. That was another traffic lights there. And then another traffic light. So you're really... the traffic is a lot of start-stop here. Great if you've got an electric car, I guess. And yeah, so the ground was super wet, wasn't confident going around any corners at any sort of speed. Also, that was the interesting thing, I'd just ridden for an hour, and it's just been motorway speed, so it's just been at constant speed all the way up. So that, and also not freezing because it was a warm day, but just soaking wet. My leather gloves also soaking all the way through. And when I got to Dundee, it was like suddenly having to remember the muscle memory of changing gears and using clutch and actually moving hand to change gears and bring in the clutch and use the brakes and stuff like that. So that was definitely something which long motorway journeys, when you get, or for me that was my longest motorway journey, a full hour in the saddle, probably a bit more. Getting into the city is a bit of like, oh, hold on a minute, need to quickly remember, and also remember how to do all these gear changes while also soaking wet and having puddles in your boots. So it did feel like the bike was carrying a good extra 20 kilograms of water weight on me. And yeah, again, just I got along a little bit more and a stop. So try to get a nice video through Dundee. Not obvious. You've got the big oil rigs on the right. They've also got these massive, which I didn't see at the time because of this rain, massive windmill propellers. Is it propellers? Fins, which are almost the same size as some of the oil rigs. So that's a little bit further along. This road here, you just can't see anything. Trying to get up to speed helps get the water off the camera here. But it was like kind of drizzly rain as well at some points, where it was just horrible. But yeah, it was a real sense of achievement. So for me, getting up there, my tailbone again really was a bit tender on this. Once a good 10 minutes in, or not 10 minutes in, but a good half hour in, I was like, oh, my tailbone is not used to this position, maybe the seat, or maybe there's an idea of cutting out some of the foam where the tailbone should be. So there's definitely something which either my body needs to adapt to, a bit like riding a bicycle. Your bum is always really sore whenever you ride a bicycle. This is less bum pain or even lower back pain. It's all tailbone tenderness. There's a few times where I'm wanting to kind of almost side saddle on the motorbike, just slightly lean a little bit more on the right hand bum cheek or the left hand bum cheek whenever I'm going, just especially when you pull the accelerator or roll. Like, look at the handlebar on the left. The handlebar's almost fallen off. I don't know if you see me kind of go, oh crap, and then I need to squeeze it in, and then the next shot you'll see it's all fully squeezed back in. Yeah, that's me pushing it in back in. And then this is me getting to the house down here. So that was the camera's in a crap position now. So next bit is the lovely sunny ride on the way home. I'll just talk over some of the wind noise of this bit going forward here. So the ride home was glorious. So once I got into the house, I dried off a little bit. I had to wear my dad's clothes and get fully dried out and just hang around for longer than I planned. But on the way home, this is what the weather I thought I would be arriving into Dundee with. So this is me going through the main road of Broughty Ferry, which is a little town just before Dundee. And the sun was out. It was definitely hotter, so as getting all my clothes on, I was sweating buckets. I was like, oh, this feels disgustingly hot. Also, my helmet was soaking wet on the inside as well from all the rain that obviously gone up inside the helmet, and my boots were still soaking wet. So although my jacket and trousers were dry and my socks and pants were dry, I had to put my socks back in my boots, which were still absolutely dripping, and my helmet was disgusting. So that was not enjoyable. And it was a case of very much as soon as I get going, get the visor open, because it would steam up. That's the thing, because it was so warm. It would steam up every time I stopped there, so I pretty much had to ride all this through the town with the visor open. And I thought maybe riding in the wind my boots would dry out, but I got all the way back to Edinburgh, a good hour's worth of riding at speed, and it was still disgustingly soggy as well. In fact, 2 days later, it's still disgustingly soggy. But certainly riding through Broughty Ferry, it was nice, sun glistening off the chrome. And the bike was riding flawlessly. You can see I've squished in the handlebars on both sides again, so they're all looking good. I've recently been test riding some Harley Davidsons, and what's quite interesting is Harley Davidson, whenever I first went to them, I was like, oh my goodness, these bikes are so big. But compared to my Kawasaki, the size of the tank on the Kawasaki, which although it's massive, doesn't actually hold a huge amount of fuel, it's made all the Harleys seem like little toys. Seem like really small little toys, or not. Well, maybe not as extreme as that, but certainly they're not intimidating in any sort of way. And additionally, with this bike, the Kawasaki, it's so low down. It's so easy to ride, and like over all the bumps as well, it's really comfortable. So because it's got very big tires as well, so although I've got a sore tailbone from the seat, the actual riding quality of the bike feels great over some of the crappy roads that you have to go to. I would like to do it all again without a sore tailbone though, so there's definitely room for developing a more comfortable saddle for my tailbone. I think I've probably damaged my tailbone from like skiing crashes in the past, or snowboarding crashes where you've landed on your tailbone, so maybe mine's just a bit more tender than your average person. Slightly irritating through Broad Ferry. I think it's all like a 20 mph speed limit or 30 mph speed limit. I just kind of went at the same speed as the other cars going in front of me, and so at that speed you're really trying to figure out, do I go into a lower gear and my bike is literally just at almost idle speed, or do I have a little bit higher up and keep the engine warm at the start? Because from what I've been told is that the Kawasaki enjoys getting hot fast rather than slowly building up speed. So whenever I'm turning on now, I always have the it's not a choke, it looks like a choke, but it's actually a fast idle screw that you just pull out, and it goes mental for the first 10-20 seconds, then calms down. Then I ride it for first like minute or so, and then I push the screw all the way in, and then her idle speed is really nice and low, and she's happily burbling away at a much lower idle speed. So that's something which I've learnt while owning her, and the staff at the Kawasaki Edinburgh dealership have really given me good long-term advice. Oh, so here, this is what I was saying about, this is the oil rigs in the foreground, but also you'll see kind of more thicker tubes on the left. They're the fins for the giant windmills that they put out at sea. So I was looking at those going, holy moly, they are absolutely the size of the cranes to just even stand them up on their end. Again, how they're standing up, I don't understand, and how big the final windmill must be absolutely gigantic. But anyway, that's one of the interesting things about Dundee. There's always either big oil rigs, which always look cool at night time when all the lights are on, and now it's all these wind turbines that they're building or shipping out or sending out to their windmills, wind turbines. It's always quite an interesting thing, distracting thing, but interesting thing. And again, along this road I think is 40 miles an hour. Can't be 100% sure, again, because you're distracted by, one, it was lovely and sunny, two, I'm looking at the oil rigs and windmills, because there was a change in speed back there. I don't know whether it's changed from a 20 to a 30 or from a 30. It seems like it should be a 40. Come on, we're like double roads here. Can I see any speed signs here? Couldn't see any. But I thought I'll just get in front of these other cars and open up the throttle a little bit and get in front of them, because I know there might be more traffic going ahead. In this ride, I didn't record any audio from my iPad. Again, my iPad had been in my rucksack with my phone, and obviously with the rain, my rucksack also wasn't waterproof, so everything in my rucksack was completely soaking, and my wallet has been drying out, so any business cards that I had that weren't plastic are just now paper mache. All my receipts as well in my wallet are just mush and are drying out on a radiator as well. So that's something which I think maybe just putting stuff in a plastic bag in a rucksack might be a good plan going forward, because I normally use the iPad to capture the audio, but because this was such a long ride and I wasn't planning on stopping, I didn't want to capture a good hour and a half's worth of audio for a couple of clips on the camera. This bit of road is great. I always thought whenever I was a kid, it's like, oh, if there's ever a driving game, this would be a fantastic road for having like a race down. And going down it in the sunshine on the bike, it's just a great feeling to really kind of lean over. Okay, I'm not leaning over much, but just that kind of downhill round a kind of almost an S-bend feels quite cool. Also, with this bike and this location in Dundee, with all the gas canisters, tanks, and the oil rigs, is quite complimentary or something. I thought that was quite cool. It's like, this bike is kind of pretty industrial, and it's bling industrial is what I would call it. It's not super bling, but it is, and the engine sound is quite industrial. When I'm not hammering it, when I actually hammer the accelerator, it sounds like thunder. When just trundling along, it sounds like a tractor. So that's something which, having these Vance and Hines exhausts that I've got on them, which has no baffles, no sound cancelling at all, it's great. So I was wearing on this ride, at no point was I bored of the sound of the helmet. A lot of people have said I should wear earplugs or something, but I'm loving the sound of it. So I don't know whether it's something which the GoPro camera really doesn't capture the audio very well at all. That's something which I don't know if that's something I'd get bored of in the future, but just it's something which I've always really wanted, I guess. So I just love hearing the sound, and I don't want to mute it out with any earplugs whenever I'm riding this. And even for the long ride on the way up, the most annoying sound was actually wind sound. When you're on the motorway, there's wind hitting you, there's rain hitting you. The exhaust sound was the nicest thing I could hear. So if maybe I was doing motorway, I'd want earplugs, but not because of the exhaust sound, but because of just the wind noise. And certainly, it's just the sound of the accelerating is the joy of riding this bike. So I don't know why people would want to wear earplugs, or maybe if you've got more of a sports bike and it's a higher pitch noise, might be annoying. But this was just a beautiful sound. So here I'm going over the Tay Road Bridge. Again, a dual carriageway. It's not a dual carriageway, but it's a double lane going on here. Again, got to admit, don't quite know what the speed limit was. I even re-watching this video, I'm not sure what the speed limit is. So I thought I'll just go at the same speed as everyone else. And this bike, when I initially got it, had some radiator issues. So I had to get a new radiator, new liquids, new radiator fluid. And on the ride up, all the fluid was fine, the radiator was fine. But I do think there's an aspect of making sure that it's always getting enough wind going in here. Strangely, whenever I've done town riding, never had any issues. When I rode up on the motorway in the rain, there was a little temperature, the hot water temperature light came on and then faded off. Came on, then faded off. And maybe that's just from being stuck at 60, 70 miles an hour for an hour straight. Maybe it's just an electrical gremlin. But certainly on the ride home, in the sunshine, in the hotter weather, in the sunshine where there's a lot more accelerating and decelerating, it didn't have any issues whatsoever with the bike at all. She got me all the way back to Edinburgh without a single fault at all. So once over on the other side of the road bridge, that's when we're kind of into Fife, and I'm just going to leave the rest of the video up for memories going into the future of my fun rides. But yeah, certainly riding through Fife in the sunshine on your motorbike, not even fast, same speed as every other car there, very slow around the roundabouts, because I was still thawing out effectively. It was a glorious day, and when I got back to Edinburgh, I was like, I just had such a wait, here's the best bit. I had such a feeling of achievement. I was like, oh, that was brilliant, because it is a workout, especially with that wind hitting you the whole way. You're holding on, and in some cases squeezing in to get the handlebars back on. But that kind of feeling of like you've actually really had a workout. You get home like, oh, I'm absolutely exhausted. When I got home all the way back to Edinburgh, I then found out that I'd left my house keys in a pocket of a jacket that I'd left up in Dundee. So later on that night, I had to get in the car and drive all the way back up to Dundee, get the keys, chat away to my parents again, and then head back down the road again. So what I thought was a fun day out on a ride on a bike, and a fuel efficient day as well, didn't use that much fuel, ended up being a good 250 miles worth of riding bikes and cars up and down the same road back and forth. So yeah, it became a wet, expensive and forgetful day in terms of, but yeah, I'm never going to forget riding my first day riding with my new jacket on, which is meant to be great for summer riding, and it was on the way home, but ended up being in a thunderstorm, getting all the way up there, and then on the way home getting all the way back, and then finding out I left my keys back up at the house and having to drive back up later that day. Fortunately, my wife was in the house, so I wasn't locked out the house or anything. But I was like, oh, I need to go for a ride now. I need to go for a drive now. Pick up my keys. Otherwise, I'd be locked out the next day. But yeah, anyway, here is just the glorious sights of riding through Fife. I'll try and get the audio so it's a bit more bass heavy and less rattly, and take out some of the wind noise. Okay, that's all. Bye bye.